And we are live. Hello everyone. I am not Pablo, but I'm here today. Let the logo run. To introduce BlenderToday for all of us. My name is Dalai Felinto. I'm gonna be your host for the next 3 weeks. And I will do some things as you're used to already. But if you're missing the introduction screen, it's because I have the images nowhere to be seen. But no problems. We're here today to talk about Blender. Today in particular, I'm going to be talking about what happened in regard to the domains. We're under attack, so the blender.org websites and services were down. And since we here talked about the news as well, that does mean we also have less development or development that changed a little bit because of that. We're going to go over these. First, how is everything? How is the... Let me get the comments here. How is your audio working? I know I sound a bit sick. I am not. Audio's left channel only. Really? Well, go figure. Well, one side is better than no side. Let's start in this fine night of December. So thanks for Pablo for being in the comments. If you have any question, you can go to the usual thread on Blender community on BlenderToday. Here I have the dump of all the changes I'm going to be talking about. And you can also start asking questions and we go over that after the main ones. So without further ado, the Cyberattack. So if you go to the blender.org and click on the latest news, you can see this blog post we're going to be reading together. But basically, most of the Blender infrastructure online was under heavy heat for a couple of days. I think it was 4 or 5 days. Honestly, I was on holidays myself, so I kind of saw this after the fact. I was a bit shocked because who in their right mind would damage such a for good organization like Blender? Go figure. That said, we had to take a few precautions. The biggest one was that we had now it's called Cloudflare. We have something in between the main access and the Blender website to avoid this into the future. So I'm gonna see how that works. And that also means that for a couple of days people could work locally offline, but they could not collaborate. And we know that collaboration is at the core of what makes the Blender development exciting. So you're gonna see a bit of a shift on the changes we had for this week. You can see the whole breakdown of the timeline in the website. So it started in the 18th of November and went all the way to the 23rd. You can see here. Now the other thing I want to bring it up right in the beginning is that while the attack was happening, we had just announced the Grease Pencil Task Force. So if you go to code.blender.org, the place where we share a lot of the development news, you can see the latest blog post was about the Grease Pencil. And because of the bad timing, I'm afraid maybe a lot of people missed the news. So I'm gonna go over this briefly again. Basically, Grease Pencil 3 is going through some changes, some transformations, right? We're basically refactoring everything for better performance. And then throughout that process, there was a lot of basically boring engineering tasks that had to be tackled. And now we are in a moment where you need a lot of muscles, of people that can develop, but that can help just by going through every single one of the operators we have for Grease Pencil and help converting them from the old to the new data structure. So it's everything in the blog post. So if you are if you're a software developer, if you are interested on contributing to Blender, this is a pretty good opportunity for that. All the details are there, so go check it out. We're starting to have people going from there into the development modules and meetings, so it's going somewhere, but we want to get a bit more traction on that. Oh, the other news, it's here, I think. Yes. So, as you might know, Blender soon is turning 39. 39, sorry, 30. I am 39. Blender's turning 30, and for that we are organizing a big donation campaign for December that's gonna run from this week all the way into the anniversary of Blender, that is December the 2nd. Sorry, January the 2nd. Ooh, stage fright. And for that, we want to also offer a chance for people to get a little bit something with them, to show that they contributed, that they help to make all of you to feel part of the project and of that campaign. And this is like a little glimpse, like a sneak peek of the new Badget we're gonna have. We might do this campaign every year, but this is the only campaign that's going to be for the 30th anniversary, so I think it's a big moment, and this looks beautiful. I hope we can do this physically. It'd be great to have this as a little object here in the office. We can grab it. Looks so good. Ooh, what else? I want to tease something, because why not? We're going over some plannings at Blender. This is all preliminary and a lot of unconfirmed targets. This is the kind of thing that we don't show until it's finished, but on the other hand, we're open source and we don't mind being transparent about the process, but it's not something that people can really consider set on stone. But we're starting to plan the targets for next year, the big targets. It's one of our traditions for December to have announced the big projects to look forward to. And we're starting to get input from the community, from the developers, the community of developers, the modules, to see what we can do that we couldn't finish this year. What is some of the new projects we need to prioritize, and how we can allocate the developers, the resources. And it's interesting because Blender being open source, we cannot really plan what the community is going to be doing. So this is mainly how we focus basically the workforce we have under payroll or under development grant. But on top of that should also give focus for people to see which areas they can contribute, because we are always welcoming patches from areas that improve Blender, but we kind of welcome it twice as much patches for areas we're currently actively developing. So this is more like for developers, but for users you can also see, get some excitement about it. Why not? All right, I heard it's time to do the segment sounds, because we're now gonna go over what changed. There we go. I'm just checking everything's fine. This is fine. All right. So as I was saying, this week was very unusual in a sense that there's a lot of cleanups, a lot of fixes, and there's always fixes and there's always cleanups. But I like to believe that not this week, but this period, I'm covering here 2 weeks of development, that this period had this focus because those are projects that people can work more isolated without relying on another developer, while the system and the infrastructure was offline. So let's go to some random ones. Full disclosure, I glanced at the list, but I didn't really test most of those things myself. So we're gonna go over that together. Let's see what's interesting here. Oh, view F-curve of property in the craft editor. So there's a contribution from Christoph Landefeld. And let's look at the demo together. Basically is, oh, it's even hard. Oh, you can go from a custom property all the way to the F-curve as a quick way for you to edit it. That's very nice. Oh, insert keyframes. You're gonna see a lot of changes from Christoph here. Christoph is receiving a dev grant, a development grant that is sponsoring his work. Thanks everyone who contributed to the development fund that makes that possible. But this one, I look at it, I think it's very visual, it's very easy for you guys to see. But it's a change from Harley. He's basically changing how do we represent the marker. So before, basically, you see this little, maybe it's hard to see over streaming. Let's try to make it bigger. You see this little dashed line, which is a bit unaligned with the triangle, and that goes through the triangle. Ugh, too ugly, right? So now he made sure the marker stops the dashed line right where it begins, and also I'm pretty sure he fixed the alignment. Harley is a champ of fixing those small, like 1 pixel adjustments that makes a world of difference. They kind of add up, right? Those things that all of those rough edges make Blender looks less professional than actually it is. So thanks, Harley. Refactoring. Ooh, gonna see things on the NLA menu. Sorry. And as you can see, everyone can go through the Blender development changes and just follow them yourself and see the change. Can even test it, see if it's working as expected, and if it's not, if the developer said, hey, this is supposed to work like this and they neglected something, you can go and report. And what do we have here? Yeah, just refactoring, moving things around. So basically the add menu is more streamlined. One thing we try to do a lot as part of the Blender UI guideline is to remove redundant words. So if it's already the add menu, we don't need to say add action strip, add transition. So now it's very clear. You add action, transition, sound. And if you want to remove them, I have no idea where they moved to. So, but those little changes are part of the bigger animation 2020 change. So we're gonna see every week more and more of those changes coming in. Let's go to some random change. What's the Pablo put like this? Is the Mario pipe? Always forget. I think it's pipe. Don't know. The Compositor. So Khabib is a developer from the community. He's been more recently known for the Kuwahara filter. Is a node on Compositor to make things look more artistic, and he keep contributing. So now as I said, let's look at that together. Create a default Compositor node tree centered around x-axis. Oh yeah, so he's basically changing the default, right? You went there, you click on use nodes. Before things were off center, you have to pan things around, and now they, right from the beginning, they look where they're supposed to look. Good job. Make splitviewer a regular split node. Why? I mean, or what? This is interesting because does he show the split viewer? Oh, I was thinking about the viewer switch. No. Okay, so he just changed, make sure the split node is what? Its own node? Oh, nice. Okay, so for those not familiar with this, let's hope it shows in the video. Otherwise, oh, there's no video. I will show. Ooh, sorry, let me open Blender here. Give me a second. Go off screen. this is the Blender from earlier today. As we all know, we can always download Blender from the build bot, the builder.blender.org. But basically you go to the Compositor. Use nodes is already where it belongs, naturally centered. Thank you, khabib. Now I go to split, and split is its own node, and then use this with the viewer node, I suppose. Yep. So you don't have the viewer, the split viewer anymore. That's pretty nice. So let's leave Blender here. Let's change. So khabib is being part of the compositing team together with Omar and other developers to trying to unify all the 3 compositing systems we have and make sure the viewport compositor has feature parity. Disable preview of split node by default. Harley is still working on this long-term project to support right to left writing. And you see like those little tidbits of code, which is more like a back-end code for the infrastructure. Those are libraries that you're going to be using for Blender for that, and he's like starting to build the building blocks to be able to develop on top of that. Cycles, more clear message. It's always nice. What's the message? So more clear message when this is more for developers, so you can build Blender without all the features enabled. It's for if you're developing, let's say, geometry nodes, you don't need cycles and you don't need to worry if cycles updates if you're working in an individual node update. And then you can disable things so you can more quickly develop a feature. And I think this is one of those commits that are invisible for the general audience, but that just makes working with Blender as a developer more pleasant. Thank you, Badget. Quality, oh, this is people. This should come with an image. This is nice. So, Open Image Denoise IO has a task with a few of the open to-dos we already know you want to support. And basically, because eventually you want to leverage everything related to GPU acceleration, and in this particular case we are exposing to users whether you want the high quality or the balanced open denoise option. I'm wondering what was the parameter we had before. Okay, so what we're having by default now is that the viewport, you see the balanced, which should be faster, but for the final rendering, you get a high quality denoise. And the denoise is very popular, people love it. So give it a try to see if you get that much of a fast result of balanced. I overall find denoiser already so faster that there's only so much it can be improved. New topic again. EV next. As we know, 4.1 is going to be a Blender, the first Blender with the new latest EV installment. This is a project that's being in development for a few years. Yeah, a few years, 2-3 years. And now we see a lot of optimizations on top of the base core features. You can already try EV next within Blender. It's basically EV. So if you go to Blender, we have EV and EV Legacy. So EV is the so-called EV Next. So don't worry about the terminology, just think about EV. That's all we're gonna get. But then we already have something very close to feature parity with some little quirks, like how we do light probe is a bit different. How do we do the shadow is a bit different. So the feature is there, but the result is intentionally different than the one we have in the, in Blender 4.0, for example. And now we see more improvements for optimization. So, this is not optimization only. So displacement option. I know a lot of people were already playing with displacement for Eevee next, and you can see why. If you look at the pictures, it's like really gives you, it can give you, it really enhance the geometry. You can put some object space normal maps there, and gives you a really nice silhouette for anything that you want to procedurally change. This is a classic example for a bump. If you just look, just put a bump in a map, you see that when you're looking in front of the object, you see there's something changed for sure. But then if you look at the silhouette, you see that you still see the original geometry, because the geometry itself is not changing, it's just changing within the light. While for displacement, you get the whole geometry change. And wow, it's finally there. And this is already familiar for people using cycles, but now we have them unified. So that is good. Small tweaking for the light probes. I mentioned how light probes now have a different approach, right, compared to the old Eevee. But now we have type is called shape, cube map is called sphere, planar is called plane. Let's see how it looks in Blender. Light probes here, plane. Oh, they look, I haven't checked the light probes in a while. To be honest, I'm very happy with the icons as well. They look pretty sharp, pretty nice. I love this little attention to detail before we launch a new, let's call product, right? A little part of Blender. Make sure we try to get it right from the get-go. Displayed render, you know what? Displayed render passes panels in the viewport. So that's gonna be, oh, it displays in the viewport. Let's see if he has an image here. Oh, oh, just the panel itself. Just make sure the panel we had, so like this panel here that shows the passes, also show when the engine is the Eevee or Eevee Next, because depending on the engine you get a different result there. For instance, if you go to Workbench, you don't see the passes. So with that, is just enable for the Eevee Next as well. Transparent to render passes. I'd assume you would have this already, and those things are so straightforward. They don't dim any comments. You see the commit message is just, hey, it's there. People are expecting that to work, and now it does. Good job, Clement. Thanks for your work. And a few fixes and whatnot. Now, I mentioned fixes. There are way too many fixes to mention. I will pick a few just as so we can talk about it. Let's check the chat. Is everything okay? Everything seems fine. I will read full names of the commits Marina V. So, for instance, this commit on the Grease Pencil 3, GPV3 is a little short for Grease Pencil 3. This was something that Falk David did. And I want to bring this to attention because Grease Pencil 3 is currently under development. In a way similar to Eevee Next, is the next installment but of a Grease Pencil. That's going to be better for production scenes, but also it's going to be integrated with geometry nodes. And it's nice to see not only the new features and the operators being ported. I mentioned at the beginning, right, to the task force. But it's nice that, you know, you also get to fix the new system while you're implementing it. This fine balance between just porting something or, you know, testing it. And that's again something I would like to invite more people to do. If you're interested on Grease Pencil, you can just test the latest Grease Pencil within Blender. Just go to Blender, you can enable it in the preferences. You can enable Developer Extra, Experimental, Grease Pencil 3. And that means now if you add a new Grease Pencil object, it's using the new Grease Pencil. It's more unstable. But that means if you see a new change in Blender on top of the Grease Pencil 3, you can test it and you can report a bug. And that's what we have here, is a fix for something which is not even released. So good job. All right, let's see what else is interesting. Crash with crazy space mesh sculpting. This was a fix made by Hans Gaudi. It was a fix for his own commit. Been there, done that. And Hans is mostly known for his work in the Geometry Nodes project. He works together with Jacques and the rest of the module. And more recently, we wanted to try to have him working in different areas of Blender, you know, instead of just being in one project. I think it's interesting for the Geometry Nodes, interesting for him, for Blender. Broad his horizons a little bit. And then we had him over for 2 months, basically, to work together with Sergey Shadabin on the sculpting in Blender. We had the dynamic retopology project on hold, and then we wanted them to kind of resume it and wrap it up and collaborate with its original developer. So it's nice to see that now that Hans is back home, back at working with Geometry Nodes, fixing the node tools and everything in that area, but he's still around fixing mesh sculpting related issues. And for anyone that doesn't know what Crazy Space is in Blender, because I don't think we mentioned that in Blender for users, right? Basically, if you have an object that has a modifier, usually is the armature modifier. Don't want to really demo that. Okay, yeah. And you have a deformation, you have the mesh deforming because of the armature is deforming. I know, let's demo it, because I'll be surprised if many people have already know what that is. Maybe you can say in the chat if you know what the Crazy Space is in Blender. So here, let's armature deform automatically. Oh, I should have where's the X-ray option for the armature? I haven't used Blender in a good time, but hey, some things never change. Let's go to edit mode, subdivide. Okay. So now, if you pose our armature, doing things live is always exciting. Pablo, how do you do it every week? I guess I need to weight paint. I'll weight paint it very roughly here. So let's go here, weight paint. And then it's also not my computer, so I'm kind of what I'm trying to demonstrate here, and I think I would do it with my words instead of with my actions, is that if you deform your mesh like this, and then you go to edit mode, and you can still select this vertex in this deformed mesh, this is Crazy Space. And because the math is rather crazy, I personally have no idea. And some things don't even work, but we try to make things work as much as possible. We have this also for hair. So in hair, we can sculpt the hair and go to edit mode. And this I should be able to demo it. Give me a sample new file. Go here, mesh, curve, fur. Now I go to sculpt mode. You can, let's snake hook something. There we go. Now you can have something deform again, and then you go to edit mode. You can still select this vertex or the segment of the curve, and things just gonna work even though things are deformed. Crazy Space for you. All right, how are you doing time? Okay, let's go see a few more things. The same thing I mentioned about Grease Pencil having fixed while we haven't even released it. We have it for EvenX as well. So we have a Miguel Pozo fixing EvenX here together with Clément Foucault. So many fixes. Today I was wondering, like, what do we demo it? And then I was like, how do we demo a bug fix? It's so much work. Crash undoing, painting on linked images. Let's go over this one, randomly selected. So this is a bug fix by Philip User. Philip is the bug triagers coordinator. He's also responsible for the LTS, the Blender long-term support release. And he likes to code, so every now and then he look at a bug and he said, you know what, I can fix that. And he does it. So he's been trying to reproduce. He confirmed the crash. Usually a crash doesn't, the fix itself sometimes is very short. This is not so small for a crash, but there you go. Good job, Philip. Fix from Bastien Montai. That's interesting. Like, most of those fixes are, you don't even know that's happening, but it's there and people fix it. Let's go to the beyond bug fixes. Full frame compositor. Oh, this is so I mentioned how the developer Habib Gabish was working with Omar and other developers in the Compositor. We saw some of his fixes, and I mentioned how long term we want to unify all the Compositor systems we have in Blender. I think a lot of people might not even know we have different compositing systems. We have the full frame compositor and the tiled compositor and the viewport compositor. I forgot where you can change the mode in Blender, but it's somewhere. I don't even remember how to change from the full frame to the tiled one. But basically he's working on unifying the experience for different compositors. I'm having a trouble switching, let's see, between the two images. Okay, here we go. Okay, what's changing? So before, oh, you see the difference. Before we're getting, is this the before one? Yeah. Before things were not fitting correctly in the frame, probably on the viewport or the full frame. Anyhow, it's maybe that belonged to the bug fix category. We had a few changes from Campbell Barton on the Ghost and Wayland. Wayland is a system that's part of the Linux system. It's one of the X11, the successor of the X11, if I understand it well. And he's been improving the tablet support, animated cursor support, minimum and other things. It's good for the Linux community. Grease Pencil 3, it's gonna deserve its own segment and show once it's out, but a few changes this week. Let's go from the bottom. Antonio Vasquez, who is the module owner and was the person spearheading the Grease Pencil 2 project for years, he's been helping now also for the Grease Pencil 3. It's really nice. Gracias, Antonio. We have menus here, compiler options, changes from Matias to show and hide layer operators, Matias Mendiola. So most of these, as you can see, are operators. That's the core of what is missing for Grease Pencil 3. They are, of course, modifiers and other things I'm forgetting now. But operators is a big chunk of that. On that note, for people following Grease Pencil 3, the next big step is going to be to support all the file changes we're going to do into the future, even without supporting the features. That means you can already convert from your old Grease Pencil to your new Grease Pencil, and you don't have to do that conversion ever again. So for anyone testing Grease Pencil 3, you can just do that conversion once and keep iterating on top of that. And once we have the features coming in, then the file as it is going to show more features. For example, once we have more modifiers supported, then you see the same file that doesn't need to be reconverted with that option. So a little addendum, that was some of the news this week for Grease Pencil. Operators. Geometry nodes. Let me clear. I have a feeling I'm using the sounds incorrectly to what Pablo used. We fix it for next week. Oh, that is so nice. So node tools, one of the nice highlights of Blender 4.0, is still under development. Let's see the best way to see that feature. Okay, there's no image here. But basically it means if you have any error in the node tools, you get a little warning where is to in geometry nodes, little exclamation mark on top of the node. So it's kind of a bug fix. We have a few new nodes, and one of them is index switch node. We had the menu switch we have the menu switch before, and that's ongoing, but we have the switch node before that had only 2 inputs and 1 output, but now we have one that you can have an arbitrary number of inputs. Very powerful. Sorry. And on top of that, then we got more. Oh, no image here. No image here. Let's show on Blender then. On top of that, we got a few more features in that node, which is the index input. No, what is the feature that Jacques added? Have this node with only a single value is not useful. Oh, by default it adds 2 inputs because indeed it's a switch. And the other change he did, he set a soft minimum and maximum on index switch node. That's from Jacques Luc. That means if I just drag here, it's gonna respect the range of those of the items I have. But if I add more items, it's still gonna follow that. So, but if I manually go and click on 10, it's gonna be, it supports that. Probably doesn't go negative though. -5. Ugh. I don't know if it should support negative. Maybe it's a bug. I'll talk to Jacques. But pretty nice. As you see, you get a feature in with the minimum that is required for it to be useful. Then we get a chance to reiterate on that once it's merged. Kind of bug fixes, rewrites, improvements. Now I'm going to different areas already. How is everything going, by the way? Is speed and rhythm fine? People seem happy about the geometry nodes. We all do, right? Nice. So there's a few updates on the Weblate. Is the Weblate platform already? I think so, right? Already public? Yeah, here. Is it? Yeah. So this is a new translation platform, which I'm sure you heard about it already here in the past. And we're already using this for all the translations, and it's super nice that we're getting it, that things are working. So good job, Bastien Montaigne. Bastien, among other things, helps to oversee the translation initiative. So thanks for people translating, but also for people helping to smooth up the process. Let's see if we get anything random here that might be nice. Okay, let's go to random. I know people like to see user-facing changes, but I like showing also random stuff. So recently in Blender we decided to change how do we attribute copyright to the Blender source code. Usually in the past we would have the Blender Foundation nominate, like namely mention in each file, and then individual contributors to that file would also add their name. Not everyone would remember to do that or would bother doing that. It was never very clear when do you start to claim copyright or shared copyright into from a file that a lot of people contribute to, right? So since I think it was last year, we started to replace these, and we have a single file in Blender called Blender Authors, and then we refer to that file from each of the individual files. And somehow there were a few files missing that, so Campbell Barton went ahead and just added this. So no feature, no change for users, but it's part of what goes into the everyday of the software. Sculpt mask to generic attribute. How can I demo that? So Hans Goldie, as part of his work on sculpting, he moved one of the sculpting scoped dedicated attributes to generic attributes. Generic attributes are the attributes you see here in the, oh, I'm in front of it, right here. Let me make the Blender a bit bigger, sorry. 1.2, there we go. So here in the attributes, those are generic attributes, right? I can add something, call it BlenderToday, and voila, it's here. I can also have non-generic attributes like a color attribute or like a UV map. The list of attributes include both the generic and the specific ones. The other non-generic attribute, or I don't think we have it anymore, but we used to have the scene, the option to mark scenes. We still have it. So you mark scenes, and this is then a hard-coded non-generic attribute. So if you added a scene there, you should see it. You should see it here, but go figure. And now over time, the idea is to move more and more attributes to generic, because that means that any part of Blender that can receive an attribute, let's say a modifier that can take an attribute here, if they support just generic attributes, they can support any attribute you want to use for that. The opposite of this is what we have in the modifiers. So for example here, you only take vertex groups for the normal edit, and that's the case for a lot of the old modifiers. And for geometry nodes, we wanted to make this more generic, so we are not limited to one specific usage for an attribute, because attribute is just data. And by the way, the sharp edge which I added here, it's listed here in the mesh. So I don't know if that was insightful. I tried. Metal support. Okay. Improvements from Jon Fielder. Jon Fielder is, did automate or committed? Yeah. So together with, so this commit is from Michael Parkinwhite, is one of the Apple developers who have been contributing to the Blender project, and I think Jason as well. So it's nice to see that Apple is helping to maintain and support Metal, which is the back-end GPU library system for their platform for the iOS, OS X. It's nice to see their contributions to here. How far are we? Oh, I will speed up now because oh yeah, we had this I want to mention. So we had a few problems with Intel drivers. This is something Aaron Bacher was investigating. Basically, Intel has some legacy drivers for their you can see here some of their GPU series, the 4000 and 5000 HD GPU series. And basically, even though it's a legacy driver, they updated the driver. And by doing so, they broke Blender, or for people using Blender and those Intel systems, it just basically broke Blender. And it's tricky because with Blender, we try to support up to 10-year-old hardware and 5-year-old software. No, it's all the other way around. I don't remember. But this kind of breaks this rule a little bit, and it is a bit tricky for us to figure out how much effort do we put into that, how much for Intel to figure things out. So basically, we are trying to find some compromises until we see how Intel itself responds to that. Sorry in the meantime. For people asking about Pablo on the comments, I can mention it later. But by the way, Pablo's on holidays, and Pablo, Santa Claus left a little letter of chocolate with your name on it. Santa Claus is a Dutch tradition. It's tomorrow. So don't eat too much in Argentina. Save some room in alfajores for your letter. Fixes. The Python API being worked on. Real-time compositor. Oh, that's nice. Refactor reverts. Let's see what else to talk. More improvements on sculpting by Hans Goody. I explained why he was working on that. He keeps doing it. Super nice to see. I think we covered most of it. Little improvements are super nice. So thanks Guillermo, I guess, Venegas, which is they implemented a change that if you go to text editor and have some active text selected and do Ctrl F, it automatically gets searched. So here we have some text, and select this and Ctrl F, it immediately goes here. This is super nice. That is super nice. Good job. UI improvements. I know people love UI improvements, so they get a little do. The menu drop. I saw one here. The icons. Pablo, have you seen these, by the way? We have new icons for join area and swap. This was contributed by Alexei Adamitsky. You can see in Blender those icons here. So if you go to the area option menu, so the context menu for the little edges in between sections, in between editors, you see here the join areas and swap areas. Yeah, I wonder why they're not the same size like the areas, but whatever, wasn't my work. So thanks for the work, thanks for the contribution. I was just surprised of UI changes happening while Pablo was away. But the UI team doesn't sleep, Pablo. Come back soon. Improved description of custom asset library type by Julian Eisel. Enable immediate typing. I think there's no great indeed UI change that's worth mentioning, because indeed Pablo's away, I guess. We see next week. So USD fixes and improvements by Charles Wardlow. Thanks. Ooh, more fixes with Weblate, but now with Vulkan. Fixed by Campbell Barton. More font changes. Oh, I think I typed the changes twice, so we're close to finish indeed. Few Vulkan fixes by and improvements by Irun. Vulkan is expected for Blender 4.1. And finally, commit by Harley on his quest to support every single alphabet in the planet within Blender, which is now using the Blender internal functions to load fonts, which means the performance is better, and we can resort to Blender fallback. So fallback is if you pick a font that doesn't have all the characters you're trying to type, then goes to a fallback that tries to have more comprehensive set of symbols. All right, whew, that was a long 2 weeks. I think we do have time for questions, maybe not many. I'll go to the thread, but thanks everyone for hanging around. I like when the BlenderToday is 1 hour or less than 1 hour. Today Francisco said I should do really short because I sound sick. I don't feel sick though. I feel energized. I really don't. I was sick last week. This week I'm great, so. But I know what he means. Okay. If I remember well, we try to go to questions that have more hearts. That means we go here. Let's hope it's a good question or easy to answer question. Okay, Cheesecake asks if we can expect assets in Blender natively anytime soon. A good question. I don't know the answer for that. I wish I knew. Maybe someone from the community knows. But basically, the color management is an ongoing project, and I can see why not. Assuming there's no license issue, I think it's something we might get in the future. The other one with 1 heart by Ricky. Greetings. They want to make the drop down list bigger or show it fully like the search menu. Okay, how do we make lists bigger in Blender? I guess this could be an option. It's a good feature request, I guess, for the UI team. The second question is, how do we edit quick favorite in a nice way? We don't have that. Quick favorite is also a bit of a quick, like a quick hack in terms of the whole usability it provides. It's great and it's like does wonders, but it's very limited on how do you customize it basically, right, after the fact. So unfortunately, there's no way for that at the moment. Let's go to the questions with no heart or any questions in the chat itself. You guys are live here. It's nice to interact, right? And why is it called Blender? This is easy to find in the internet. Was a music from a... Oh no, it's easy to find in the internet. Blah, 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 blah. I see no questions here. Besides where Pablo is. People are missing you, Pablo. Oh, people asking if Simulation Zone is a base for Solver. This I can answer easily. So Simulation Zones, you go here, Simulation Zone. This indeed is gonna be the base for solvers. For that, we're probably gonna need more building blocks and even those black box as solver nodes that might do advanced computation. But at the core of this is going to be something integrated with the simulation nodes, with the baking system, with the rest of Blender and geometry nodes. Let me go to this one question because I read it earlier and I found it interesting. So that person is asking why when importing OpenVDB, you do it here, right? Shift A, OpenVDB, where is volume, import OpenVDB, instead of file, import, OpenVDB. I don't know. I mean, I think if I actually know the answer for that. The thing is, a pretty good question though. A volume object can have a VDB file here. And it's very common when you're adding a VDB to just add it via the... Honestly, I don't have an answer for that. I think I think it was Brecht who added this. I think probably was trying to make it easy to use, because quite often you already have a VDB somewhere in your computer. If you simulate it, you simulate something. Because Blender itself doesn't have tools to edit VDB, to edit volume objects, right? You bring them in and you do something with them. So in a way, we could have it as importing, but then we wanted to promote the volume object as a new object, right? And then to only have the volume empty without having an edit mode was also a bit silly. So I guess I'm doing like my own thought process to justify what we have. So by having here the option to import OpenVDB, you make the volume object more prominent, but you also make it useful from the get-go, right? The same way for curves. Sure, you can have an empty hair, but you also can have a fur with already the information. So I think that was the reason that justified this different approach. Yeah, I hope that answered a little bit. And there are some comments about how this sometimes the lack of consistency kind of damage the UX, and over time it's annoying. We are in a 1 hour mark, and I think it's a nice exercise to be concise. So I'd like to thank everyone for staying here for that long. Thanks, Pablo, for helping me with the setup. We have a whole set of instructions on how to operate, and yet we spent half an hour today troubleshooting the microphone. So the problem with them, the mono and stereo, I think it was actually a fix. I'm gonna try to be here next week and the week afterwards, so stay tuned. Send the questions on BlenderToday again if you want for next week. So we're gonna be publishing the topics a little bit before the Blender streaming, and that's about it. So thanks everyone for plugging in. Let's see if I remember how to turn everything off. So first I'm gonna turn Gilly, which I know is a tradition here, and it's supposed to be super loud. So be aware of the volume right now. Got 3, 2, 1. Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for having a great week. I hope. Checking my notes here if I didn't forget anything. First is the microphone and the stream. Goodbye everyone.